Hello everybody, it is me, GamePenguin21, and today, after some restructuring and some more interesting news and developments on Concord, I've decided that I'm going to make another video. This is going to be a 3-video upload week because, quite honestly, there's a lot of news to get through, and I kind of want to do some other things next week, so next week will be more of a cleanse. There will not be so much PlayStation fanboy salt, it's just that there's been a lot this week because of one particular event that has now happened. Literally, the day that I posted my PC Gamer reaction article thing, someone, not only in my comment sections, but now all over social media, people are saying that Concord is officially being shut down September 6th. Oh boy, that is interesting. Holy Jesus, the game didn't last even 2 to 3 weeks after its launch date. Quite the accomplishment. Of course, the PC Gamer article was mainly talking about dancing upon the graves of unpopular games and stuff, with the very interesting thing there. But in accordance with Dexerto here, Concord is officially shutting down to September 6th, with offering full refunds to all of the players. That meaning that everyone who purchased these types of games will get full refunds. And I've only just now realized this is probably the second or third game that Sony has declared, yeah, this is bad enough that we need to offer full refunds because our refund policy is ass. With that being said, if you like what it is that I do, want to support me in any other way, shape, or form, links down in the description below. Please make sure to also like, comment, favorite, and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. But getting back on topic here, Dexerto themselves, again, reported on this, and this has been corroborated by several different news sources, and oh my goodness. To give a little context to how badly some of these people were actively saying that this game was going to succeed, Gaz here basically has several tweets from a couple different people here that we're just going to go through really quickly, as this is the more glazing portion of the actual thing, that these tweets were not made that long ago. So these Concord tweets aged well by accordance with Gaz. And of course, we're going to just go through these very quickly. But that person you like to hate is 345 on a holiday, full games with September 24th. Or no, it's the 2nd of September, 2024. Wow, that was literally one day before the announcement was dropped, which is the September the 3rd, by the way. Woolly Gamer here says 12 maps, 16 characters, 6 models, no paid battle pass, strong mode pack, absolute quality, when retweeting about Concord here as well. This was made the 23rd of August as well. Interesting. The day before, the person said, or not the day before, the August the 22nd, basically says, I cannot stress enough just how utterly perfect Concord is. The negativity this game has received before even release is one of the biggest travesties in gaming. I feel partially responsible, and it sickened me, to be honest. I hope so much it succeeds and folks give it a chance. Oh, that aged terribly. One final one from that Woolly Gamer guy person, saying, I can confirm, under new games on PSN, Concord is the 6th best selling. No wonder it takes me 2 seconds to load into a game. Thumbs up. Love to see it. At Concord, August 26th. And of course, we have more from that person you like to hate, just basically just sucking this thing's teat for the amount of engagement and stuff that he wants, just saying that this game is the best, this game needs to be successful, this game is so freaking good. But of course, this wouldn't be a PlayStation fanboy if we didn't have a little bit of hypocrisy in this, where the person basically is wondering why Elden Ring, a very good game, one game of the year that year, essentially says too many bugs at launch. Elden Ring was such a buggy mess at launch. Just to get a stable frame rate, you need to play the PS4 version on PS5. Gaming Reviews needs standards when talking about the 10 out of 10 masterpiece of Elden Ring. That is the IGN review. And I mean, okay, just because you don't like a game and then you have some actual stuff with it, they did eventually fix it. But again, Elden Ring has lasted like 2 years and will probably last into the near future, whereas Concord, yeah, it didn't have that. But of course, that person you like to hate also basically talked about how in the Concord beta it had 2,000, which was 1,000 more than the Halo Infinite had concurrently. Which I think Halo Infinite had, he cropped this specifically out. But I think Halo Infinite had a higher peak overall player count than Concord beta, which maxed out at about 2,000, and that was when it was free to play. And I find it funny here how Concord has broken the PlayStation fanboys' most buzz down to a degree I've never seen before. This is August 26th, so this is an older tweet. And again, this is another tweet from the same person who just really wanted Concord to succeed. But even with all of the news and all of that glazing beforehand, some of these guys are still trying to turn it into a PlayStation W. Starting, of course, off here with the Red Dragon. This was one of the bigger ones that I happened to find here, where Xbox puts out a bomb like Redfall and keeps selling it. Sony puts out a bomb and recognizes it isn't standard players have come to expect and offers refunds immediately. Good guys, PlayStation. Sony pulls Concord from sale and will refund customers. I mean, okay. But what about Quantum Error? You know? What about all the games that Sony didn't decide needed a refund at all? You do get that that's not a good thing, that the corporation failed so hard that they have to enact refunds in order to try and save face with their consumer base. Or in order to try to, bring back the costs of the game up for whatever reason. Like, you get, this is not them being good guys, right? What I also find funny is that apparently PlayStation is the good guys for pulling their games off of sale of their own platform. But when it came to Helldivers 2, and they pulled the game sales from several or up to 100 plus of the countries, Valve was the bad guys for offering full refunds for those people within the countries that couldn't get access to the PlayStation game anymore. Almost like there's some double standards or something going on. But who's to say? Obviously, this is a PlayStation W because they're graciously offering refunds. Of course, the Red Dragon also wants you to be sure and understand that while, yes, Xbox would be declaring this game of the generation that only failed because of the Xbox tax and PlayStation, meanwhile, I told you that this game was dead months ago, with him basically retweeting Krabuda saying that the pronouns are DOA, talking about, of course, Concord. And I mean, sure, he wasn't the one glazing this thing up, but now he's glazing up PlayStation, despite the fact that they practically flopped a game out the door, and he is basically saying that this is a PlayStation W because they are so gracious to offer refunds. I will remind everyone in the audience who might not know about PlayStation's refund policy, you legit can't get a refund if you have done anything to interact with the game, and you are only offered a refund if Sony allows it. So that's how bad that is. Of course, there were people clowning on him in the comments. A couple that I took here was from Metro to Chinuki. Concord failing hard, nothing to do with Xbox, but you damage control by comparing it to Redfall just to save face. And it says Redfall can be played in single player for worth playing games. Again, these are just a couple of them. There's a few more that I just decided to delete because we need to move on, and this video is already going to go on a little bit longer than I would like. But Unleashed here basically tweeting the same day, which I find very fucking hilarious, that Jim Ryan was right. Thank you, boss. Where PlayStation boss says consoles like the Xbox Series X haven't had great results, quote unquote. I mean, again, if you're talking about purely hardware sales numbers, probably not. But there is still a lot of missteps that PlayStation has done in the same context. And I find it just really funny that this was tweeted out the same day that this news dropped. So, quite hilarious. But even still, there are still people who are trying to defend this, with this tweet in particular from Stella, talking about how my heart breaks for Firewalk Studios. The fact it wasn't even given at least 6 months to properly sit through a season and adjust as a proper live service game is insane to me. It's very clear PlayStation didn't believe in this from the start and failed to support it. If they didn't believe in it from the start, why was it their penultimate fucking game in the showcase that they had to showcase this game off in like one of their official big PlayStation showcases, I think several months earlier? This was the game that they were touting was the game to be a good game. Like, how can you look at that and say this game, right, is the game we are going to promote the fuck out of and put in the penultimate spot on the game, on our game showcase? Like, what? How does that make any sort of sense? But of course, we're going to take a look at some clowning on them tweets in this back half of this section. Starting, of course, off with Commander Carl with, imagine spending 8 years building a game only to have it pulled from store 2 weeks after its release. It's almost like letting investors and shareholders run the show is slowly strangling AAA development or something. I mean, I tend to agree. Quite honestly, there's nothing wrong that was said about that. Next up, we have Nicola basically talking about how listening to your audience is important. I find it interesting that listening to your audience is important for Nicola in this context. And yeah, he has some actual I'm not a Sony pony type moments here, and this is one of those. But again, this guy I think was one of the people who, I don't know if he was talking and glazing up Concord specifically. I'm going to assume not, unless proven otherwise. But I'm going with the assumption that he hasn't, and that he basically said, hey, listen to your audience here. We also want all of these games. Like, a Bloodborne remake would probably be in the cards at this point, at least in some cards here. Noir comes in with another interesting factoid of, these are the biggest game failures of 2024. How many more until the gaming industry finally takes the hint? Talking about things such as Skull and Bones, Concord, Foam Stars, and Suicide Squad killed the Justice League. A lot of those games basically just failed right out of the gate for various different reasons. I'm not going to say they all failed for the same reasons. Foam Stars and Skull and Bones, I think, were just basic cookie cutter parodies of what the games could have been, and they weren't fully realized even at launch. And to be quite honest, those games were just not really well put together in certain aspects. It just felt very boring to play. Whereas with Concord and Suicide Squad, there was a lot more stuff going for it, as those were the bigger AAA games. With at least Foam Stars, I can understand it's a bit of a failure because it's more of a AA-ish game. But with Skull and Bones, Suicide Squad, and Concord, there really is very little in terms of, nuances to why they failed. Porter Rock coming in here with a Concord is being shut down in 3 days because nobody is playing this game. I told you to relax on defending this game. This game flopped. It was obvious. Bleeding Edge FFS had a longer tenure. This is one of the worst first-party showings ever in the brand history. Sony is refunding the game to everybody, and by everybody, I mean the 50 people that bought the game. Nice. 8 years down the drain, and for what? Fucking nothing. I mean, again, nothing really to say on too much on that. Just that, again, if you get Porter Rock 77 to say, hey, don't defend this game fucking sucked, you may or may not have had some sort of thing here. So yeah. Next up, we have Jrock with, remember, Ponies told you Concord was seeing massive support on the PlayStation, told you the Steam numbers aren't representative of reality. Today, we got news that Concord is shutting down and you'll be refunded, and you all know refunds is something Sony hates to do. Again, There is nothing wrong with what he said here. I just wanted to point this out that, again, Sony barely does anything having to do with refunds, which means that when a game is getting refunded, that means that the game is not good. Now, some of you might be taking a look at me and saying, hey, what about Cyberpunk 2077? Well, the thing about Cyberpunk 2077 is that that was slightly different because, again, it was a single-player experience that got patched into a much better state down the line and even made it to getting its first, I think, DLC. I think it's getting a second DLC at some point. But it's a game that, in and of itself, had a ton of problems, but they fixed the majority of them. And overall, we can kind of forgive the Cyberpunk devs, at least in some regard, not entirely. Don't let them forget, because failure is important to remember for times like this. But they at least put the time in to fix the problems. And they said that they're going to in this context, but I don't believe Sony for a country bumpkin minute. Next up here, we have the Game Profit NYC with a "Don't let PlayStation fanboys tell you that they support the devs ever again." Again, one of the bigger things that a lot of people were talking about is saying that, oh, we buy our games, we support our developers, we do all this, we do all that. Absolutely, you support your developers. Sure. Now, just to kind of go off of that a little bit, this is an interesting IGN article, I believe, where where Dawson basically says the PlayStation fanboys do not buy games, they preach. That's why Pony's got Square Enix going to multiplat, because they don't buy shit. And this is how Concord is estimated to have sold only 25,000 units. Here's why an analyst think it's failing: weak marketing, high price point, lack of distinguishing characters, doomed Sony's multiplayer hero shooter. Again, this is one of the bigger things that a lot of people have been talking about, is that people in the PlayStation camp don't buy games. Now, they buy games, certainly, but it's more of a meme and a joke, and one of the reasons why Concord here is, even if that number is grossly underutilized, the fact that, again, it didn't even crack 100 or 1,000 players in its first opening weekend kind of shows you that this game wasn't gonna happen. Now, I don't think that it was the high price point that ended up doing it, because, again, games can be sold for up to $70. It is a high price point in comparison to other games within the genre and in comparison to the content that is presented. There was also the weak marketing, which I believe 110% also played a significant factor in this. At the very least, this person is not saying that it had anything to do with DEI or racists that made this game fail, but we can all assume that at least one or two of the people on Twitter are basically talking about that, but we're not going to here. Now, of course, one of the more interesting things here is that someone by the name of Jake Chinatown decided to say, fuck the haters, just picked up a physical copy of this bad boy so I can play it forever. Where Gaz says this guy bought the game 10 minutes ago. Where, yeah. Again, that's really, really kind of funny that this person said, oh, I'm going to buy the physical version so I can play it forever. Despite the fact that when the server is shut down, you're not going to be able to play it because it's an online-only multiplayer game. Someone else comes in with a more interesting take, and some people were memeing on this, where someone had a dumb thought of the day, which always have dumb thoughts of the day. Sometimes it can be really funny. And I wanted to do this because dumb thought of the day. Do I get a physical copy of Concord to place next to my sealed copy of Lawbreakers? Yes. Because it's funny. Sorry for anyone whose ears I just popped with my yes there, but I would 110% just buy a copy of Concord just to have it, because some people like those shit games and stuff. But yeah. Also, I wanted to point this out because it still hurts that Lawbreakers, even though it's been probably at least 5 to 6 years, that game deserved so much. I'm so upset that it didn't come out any better. Of course, post up with another "we support the devs" moment. I mean, again, not really much else to really put on this. Just wanted to talk about that a little bit more. And we'll end it off with this post from 4chan. And now, of course, this post was reposted onto Twitter, because obviously it was. But I wanted to talk about this because it, again, begs an interesting question that has been happening here. So, we have two games. We have Concord, which took 8 years to develop, $100 million plus monies spent, 700 copies sold, with everybody hating it. Now, the 700 copies, it seems that 700 to 225K is the weird number, so that's very wildly depending on things. Wukong took 4 years to develop, made by like 30 people. They were all childhood friends when they met in university. 15 million copies sold, 700 million in revenue, damn, and loved by most people. A little typo there. What the F happened? What can we learn from this? And that's a good question to kind of pose to the general populace. What can be learned from this? What can be learned from all the stuff that we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks? In terms of the gaming and AAA space? Well, in my mind, I think there's only one lesson to learn from this, and that is this. I want games that don't emphasize graphics, that don't emphasize the fluff and kerfuffle of everything having to do with the AAA space. I would like smaller games, released more frequently, at a higher quality, for people who get paid the correct amount and don't have to crunch in order to actively, make money. That's how I would like it. That's how I think most people would like it in terms of the gaming industry, but that's just, again, my own personal opinion. But, yeah, I think that'll about do it for today's episode of I Ramble Into a Microphone for seemingly no reason about a topic that I am very passionate about, for something that probably should be talked about more by a professional. If you like what it is that I do and want to support me in any other way, shape, or form, links down to everything in the description below. I do stream on Twitch now, and once I get affiliated more with my other account for the DJ account, I will be doing more DJ live streams on the DJ channel because of Twitch's new DJ shit, which upsetting a little bit, but I mean, I do want to be able to eventually stream more on Twitch whenever that's possible, but I don't know if I can or if I should. It's just kind of one of those things that I don't like doing when I have to. But yeah, go follow the Twitch, go follow the DJ live stream Twitch, which is going to be where I'm going to be moving all of my Twitch live streams to. So yeah, I don't really need to move for the followers and stuff, but whatever. You can also donate to me on Patreon as well as Coffee or whatever if you want to just throw me a few shekels my way for whatever reason. It's not really necessary, but it helps. And of course, please feel free to like, comment, rate, and subscribe, and do all the stuff that YouTubers tell you to do. And with that being said, like I said before, my name is GamePango21, and a peace. Off. Hey man.